This video is about the power dip that happens before you get on the pipe, and that is mostly with reed valve engines with a standard expansion chamber. This right here is a dyno horsepower graph, very typical of such a bike. And this power dip right here really depends upon the steepness of angle of the baffle, or actually more literally the actual length of it. So the longer it is, the weaker the return wave from the baffle, and the weaker the less power dip you have. Let me explain. At this RPM is 6,000, okay, and this is the graph of the return waves plotted in time from transfer opening to bottom dead center to transfer closing to exhaust closing. So at 6,000 RPM, the peak of the diffuser wave is somewhere between BDC and transfers closing. So it happens as the piston's rising from bottom dead center. And the baffle wave is pretty much centered around transfer closing. And that's where the problem comes in. Because as that piston is rising, you don't want the pipe to be putting pressure here, because that will push the intake charge back down through the transfer port. You want to keep as much intake charge here in the combustion chamber as possible. So when that baffle wave is centered over the transfer closing point, then that's bad news, and that's why this happens. There's basically two solutions to that, and that's a boost bottle and perforating the baffle cone. So just to be a little bit more expansive on this video, I'm going to include a couple other things too. I want you to notice how at peak power RPM, which is 9,500 in this case, the baffle wave is about half of its maximum pressure, and the diffuser wave is almost at its maximum vacuum. Okay, and when you have the opposite, when you have the baffle wave at its peak at exhaust closing, which is the optimal for plugging to keep the intake charge from escaping from the combustion chamber into the pipe. This is ideal right here. But look what we've got at transfer closing. So right as that piston is closing the transfer port, what do we have right here? Instead of some suction to help bring that charge into the combustion chamber, we have just a little bit of a pressure. So we're going to have some loss. So at 8,500 RPM, what have we got? We've got this horsepower right here. And at 9,500 RPM, we've got peak. So we've got ideal exhaust port plugging at 8,500 RPM and ideal intake enhancement at transfers closing at 9,500 RPM. So what does this tell us? This right here gives us peak power, not this. So the intake cycle is more important than the plugging, which makes sense because most engines only get cylinder filling like 80% maximum. So we've got some deficit going there. So there's something else I want to talk about. Bring into this talk is the shape of this diffuser wave. This is just right. When that peak happens like that, it's sloping up. So as the piston's rising from BDC to transfer closing to this point right here, it's creating a suction down here in the crankcase. Okay, which is counter to what you want to happen. You don't want the suction pulling the charge down. You want a suction here pulling the intake charge up into the combustion chamber, and that's what happens with this. This vacuum wave is coming right here from the pipe, and it's helping pull that into the combustion chamber. And so as the piston's rising to create its vacuum here, the pipe is creating its vacuum here. See, it has it ramps up here. Perfect. That's exactly how you want it. Okay, so at least you don't lose any down into the transfer port. Okay. So when I make a pipe, I always make it as a 3-cone, at least 3-cone diffuser, where the angles become gradually more, because that is what creates that shape, that progressive shape right there. When you make single cone, which is easier to do, look what happens. The peak happens early in the wave. So right when you want maximum vacuum at transfer closing, you don't have it. In this case, you've got maybe 1/4. I haven't tried this on a real race bike. I've only experimented with these two designs on my 100cc street bike, and this was by far the better design. Yeah, I tried that and it sucked like a dog, and I put that on and it was really good. I really liked it. But as far as what race bikes need, I really don't know. I have not experimented on the race bikes. But for anyone that trail and street, I definitely recommend 3-cone diffuser. As I said before, the solution for the power dip before you get on the pipe, which is, is mostly for street and trail bikes, because the race bike keeps it on the pipe all the time. This is my pipe for the my motorized bicycle, and I was just experimenting with it. So I drilled these holes, and then I made this enclosure, and I had it welded here. It was okay. I didn't notice a big difference, so then I did the same to this section too. And that's what you got to do. These holes are like, I don't remember exactly what this is, about 5 millimeters. I think I've read that the range of hole size is 4 to 7 millimeters. So, yeah, you can just, drill holes in all of the baffle and then enclose it like this, or you can make it go all the way to the stinger. And if you put holes in the beginning of the stinger, then it works even better to absorb the sound waves that are coming through the holes of the baffle. You want to see the difference on the horsepower graph? This is it right here. This is from one of Blair's paper. This gray graph right here is with the perforated baffle, and the black graph is normal expansion chamber. In this little dip right here, don't worry about that. That's just that's an oddity that can happen with different designs. You've got so many factors involved. So, but look, it got rid of the pre-Powerband power dip, and it was able to rev out longer. This is something they used to always do on carts. I don't know if they still do. And this is a result. You're almost at the same peak power, and then it just revs out. It keeps from dying out as quick, so you have better over rev. So I find that interesting. So, maybe in some race bike situations that you really need that over rev, you might try that. So as far as information about boost bottles, this is my page on the subject. This right here is the address. And it goes into all the technical specifications. You can't just slap a boost bottle on there and expect it to work. It has to be designed. The volume of that bottle, the volume of the tube, the length of the tube, it all comes into play. So you have to have a calculator to figure it out. So this is my boost bottle calculator. This is a link to it. So yeah, it has to be calculated. You just can't slap anything on there. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, boost bottle or perforated baffle. But usually race spikes are just using the higher RPM, this section right here. It's no big deal. But I want my 100cc street bike. This was very annoying, and I got rid of it with the boost bottle, and then I also experimented with the perforated baffle. But the boost bottle was sufficient. Okay, so that's all for now. Thanks for watching.